Hawk. Hunt and respond to Microsoft cloud threats with open source precision.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another Hawk tutorial. In this video, I'll be walking you through how to run a Hawk tenant investigation. If you haven't already installed Hawk, please be sure to check out our installation guide or our installation tutorial video on the Hawk's Forensics website. The link's in the description below. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Now that we have a PowerShell window opened up here, we're going to simply type in start, tac Hawk, tenant investigation. And for this particular part of the tutorial, we're going to run Hawk in what we call interactive mode. And this is where Hawk will present you with a number of questions requiring input to kind of run your investigation and configure your investigation, as opposed to what we call non-interactive mode, which is where you can pass in some command line arguments to sort of bypass the interactive prompts that you're asking throughout the run of the program. So we're going to go ahead and simply click enter. And the first thing that you're presented with here is the Hawk ASCII art along with a welcome message. Hawk will then ask you for a output directory, and this output directory is simply where Hawk is going to store all the logs that it's pulling from the Microsoft Cloud. So I've already went ahead and created the Hawk demo directory, and one thing to note here is that the directory that you specify must already exist on your local file system. And then one of the first things Hawk's going to do is it's going to try and connect to the Microsoft Graph. The reason for this is Hawk pulls down a number of logs using the Microsoft Graph API, so you have to authenticate there. One thing to note is that if you have not already looked at or read the Hawk permissions configuration user guide or watched the tutorial, please do so, because in order to successfully run Hawk and all the graph commands, you have to set up a number of permissions with your environment to do so. So we're going to go ahead and authenticate here. And as you can see, we have authenticated successfully to the graph. And one thing Hawk will then do next is create a subfolder inside the directory that we specified. That folder always starting with Hawk, followed by the tenant name that you're investigating, as well as the date timestamp. And then it's going to do some other checks here. It's going to check for the latest version online, and then it does this nice little check here where Hawk will go and determine what is your M365 license type. For us, we're running an E5 license, and the reason why this is important is it helps determine the maximum log retention that you have within your M365 environment. So for E5 or G5 or 5 series licenses, the max log retention is going to be 365 days. If you're running a 3 series license, such as an E5 or sorry, an E3 or a G3, your max log retention will be 180 days. So Hawk will go ahead and pull down this information for you, which then helps you answer your next question. How many days do you want to go back in history to start your investigation? For us, since we are running an E5 license, we can go back up to 365 days. But for this, you can type in a month, day, year time format to start your investigation, or you can simply specify the number of days that you want to go back. So for this tutorial, to kind of keep it the runtime a little shorter, we're going to go back 30 days here. Press enter, and then next you're going to be presented with having to enter in the end date for the investigation. Again, you can enter in a number of days, or you can enter in the month, day, year time format as well. One thing to note is that whenever you do specify your end date, Hawk will automatically set the end date to today's date plus 1 day. The reason for that is we want to make sure that we're including all logs for the current day and not missing any of those logs. So it's always today's date plus 1 is what it's going to go to. So for the today's date currently in Zulu time, it is currently February 3rd. My local desktop here is February 2nd, but in Zulu time, which is what Hawk operates off of right now, it is February 3rd. So one thing you'll notice here is at the end of this, the end date is going to be set to February 4th. So we're going to have to press enter to default to today's date. And then what you're going to get next here is a prompt to connect to Exchange Online. The reason for this is Hawk pulls a number of logs from the Unified Audit Log, or what's referred to as the UAL, which resides within Exchange Online. But before I authenticate here, I did want to show you that sitting here in the terminal is the configuration summary that Hawk presents to you. Once your configuration is complete, showing you your Hawk version, your Hawk file path, your start date, your end date, and here that being February 4th, which is the day after today's date in Zulu, which is February 3rd. Your tenant name, and then a little happy hunting message. So we're going to go ahead and authenticate to the Exchange Online. And now you get this wall of yellow text here indicating that you have connected to Exchange Online. This is what Exchange Online provides you with once you're connected. And then Hawk then begins the tenant investigation here. Now what you notice here to the right of the timestamp are these what we refer to as prompt tags. The action tag is anytime a log message is being displayed to the screen, indicating that some sort of action is occurring, such as pulling a log, writing to a file, anytime action is occurring. You then have the info tag, which is any sort of informative message for the user. For example, once a log pull has completed or once writing to a file has completed, and things like that. You'll also notice one of the more important tags here, which is the investigative prompt tag. So Hawk's primary purpose is to automate log collection from Microsoft Cloud environments. However, Hawk has also implemented some investigative checks as well, looking at some of the logs that it's pulling down and flagging some things that might be of interest to an analyst pulling back some of these logs. So as an example, right now we are pulling down we're pulling down all the applications that are registered within your Entra ID environment. And then along with that, we're pulling down all the permissions assigned to those applications. One of the investigative techniques that Hawk takes here is it looks at all those permissions assigned to those applications and will flag if there's any sort of extremely dangerous permissions or high risk permissions or overly broad permissions that are assigned to these applications. An example of a high risk permission could be a permission that allows somebody to read all of your BitLocker keys, and that's one of the things that we're looking for inside of Hawk. But for more of a in-depth description of the things that Hawk looks for and will flag on the investigation prompt for, go ahead and check out our website at hawkforensics.io. That'll give you a full listing of all the files that Hawk pulls down and writes to disk, as well as the investigative techniques that we're using. At this point in time, during the tenant investigation, this is one of the more lengthy log pulls here. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to fast forward and come back after this part of the application run is complete. All right, now that we've finished gathering the list of all of our applications and their assigned permissions, Hawk is then continuing to run the rest of the functions to pull down additional logs. And as you can see here, the tenant investigation has completed, and you're presented with this investigation summary here. It'll let you know what tenant you investigated. It'll also let you know the total runtime and where to find all of your logs, along with the specific command to run if you want to look or investigate some specific users. That being Start Hawk User Investigation, which we have a full tutorial for on our website. So the next part of this demo is then going to show running the tenant investigation non-interactively, and then also kind of just exploring the file directory and the logs that are written to disk. All right, so now we're going to just quickly show you how to run a tenant investigation in non-interactive mode. We're not going to run the investigation all the way through. We'll just show you a quick, example of what this looks like running this in non-interactive mode. So just like before, we'll type in Start Hawk Tenant Investigation, but now we're going to pass in the command line argument for the start date, and we'll just set it to January 1st of, we'll set it to actually March 3rd of 2024, and then the end date, we'll set that to today's date, so we'll do February 2nd of 2025, and then you have to specify a file path as well, and then we'll just do Hawk demo here. And now you simply press enter, and then rather than being asked for this information up front, Hawk will just then begin running the tenant investigation. And since we already showed you all the output from before, we'll just go ahead and stop here for the investigation. All right, now that our Hawk tenant investigation is complete, we went ahead and opened up the Hawk demo folder, and inside of there is the subdirectory that Hawk created for us. For those of you following along closely, you'll notice that this date is 1 day ahead. That's because this was recorded over a 2-day time span. But looking into this folder here, you'll notice 2 different text files, our Hawk test file, the investigate text file, and then the tenant folder. The Hawk text file, all that is simply a copy of all the logs, the data that was printed to your screen during the run of Hawk, which is a nice, quick, easy reference for you later on. And then this investigate text file is only created whenever Hawk provides that investigate prompt or flag throughout the run of the Hawk program here. So you'll notice here that there's several different messages, and for each of the messages that are displayed here, for example, found suspicious admin inbox rule creation requiring investigation, it will then give you a location to look at those logs in more detail inside of the tenant folder here. One that we'll kind of look at here today is this particular flag here, found suspicious rule creation that was called suspicious test rule for Hawk creation/modification history. And to learn more about this, or to look more into this particular suspicious rule modification, it's just directing us towards this particular file here inside of the tenant folder. So we're going to take a look at the tenant folder. Inside the tenant folder, these are all the logs that Hawk has pulled down during the tenant investigation. The majority of the files that you see here are going to be in CSV for a quick and easy look, quick tertiary or quick triage look at the logs that are coming down in a nice human readable format. You'll also have the JSON representation of these logs in the raw format that is pulled down from Microsoft 365. For some of the configuration logs that are pulled down, you'll have those in a text file format as well. For example, your org config and some other ones are pulled down via text file. But for the most part, it's CSV files, again, for that quick, easy look, JSON files, if you'd like to ingest those into some sort of SIEM like Elk, Splunk, or Sentinel. For any JSON that is pulled down that contains nested JSON, for example, the admin inbox rule modification, this contains nested JSON in here. So looking at that inside of a CSV file, that is very hard to discern what is inside of here. And what this actually is this is coming from the unified audit log, or the UAL, inside of M365. There's an audit data portion of the JSON that's pulled back, and then inside of that is more nested JSON. So anytime that there is nested JSON in any sort of log file, we go ahead and flatten that out, and that file, those files that are flattened out and give you a nice simple view, we prepend with the term simple, as you'll notice here. So we just had that simple admin inbox rules modification, or we just had the admin inbox rule modification file above. Now we have the simple representation of that with the flattened JSON. So now, instead of that one column that had the audit data field, you have multiple columns that are pulled from that nested JSON and represented here across this multiple columns. So this, for example, was inside that nested JSON, and it had the parameter key with multiple values inside of there, and we just flattened that out here. So now you have param42, param identity, param mailbox, etc. So this is just a bit more of an easy human readable format here for the users of Hawk. And then additionally, we also flatten out that JSON as well right here. So they have the JSON flattened representation of the data as well. But going back up to kind of what brought us here, right? We're looking at the investigate file. We saw suspicious rule modifications requiring investigation. There are a couple different rules that popped up here, and it said to go to this particular file. So the investigate admin inbox rules modification. So, which is held right here. Investigate admin inbox rules modification. We'll go ahead and open that up. And inside of here, it looks like there's two particular items of interest that Hawk flagged. And kind of scrolling to the side here, the reason for this particular item being flagged was we had an inbox rule modification, which was set up to forward any sort of any emails coming into this user here, Butler J, forward to someone else at updateddomain.com. For a full listing or understanding of what Hawk actually flags on, you can look at the code, or you can also look at our website at hawkforensics.io, where we kind of provide some feedback or details into some of the items that Hawk is flagging on specifically. Again, this does not necessarily mean you're compromised. This does not mean anything bad is going on. It's just things that might be worth looking into and validating. But that's pretty much it for this part of the tenant investigation tutorial. Again, for a full understanding of all of these files that are written to disk during a tenant investigation, that is all outlined on the Hawk user guide on hawkforensics.io. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and if there's any questions, please head to our support section on the Hawk Forensics website.